Pam Bondi's photos get thrown immediately in the trash in United States attorneys' offices across the country. Pam Bondi so loathed, so deeply reviled that as soon as she was terminated, lots of DOJ veterans were very quick to take her portrait themselves and just throw it in the garbage. And specifically, one of the things that the DOJ veterans and lots of people working in the DOJ recounted is a story that Pam Bondi would tell over and over again in her various propaganda speeches and interviews that she would give, that when she started working at the DOJ and she was appointed as the Attorney General, she was walking around the DOJ's offices and she saw Biden's photo and Merrick Garland near somebody's office that just hadn't been removed yet. And she goes, "I personally took it. I threw it in the garbage." And then she demoted a very well-liked veteran, a guy by the name of Devin DeBacker, who had been the acting chief of the National Security Division at the DOJ, a DOJ veteran who was beloved, who led the National Security Division. She blamed him, Bondi blamed him for keeping Biden and Merrick Garland's photo up there and not taking it down quick enough. She threw it in the garbage, demoted the guy, and the DOJ veterans and others working at the DOJ did not forget that specific incident at all right there. You know, notably, while there had been, we've been talking about this, a mass exodus of DOJ lawyers and employees. You know, I mean, Bondi ran this thing so horrifically, both in terms of the lack of competence, the lack of diligence, and then also the sheer servility, the sycophant, being a sycophant to Donald Trump, literally putting Donald Trump's banner on the DOJ. I mean, it was so utterly humiliating. But I mean, she gets replaced with Todd Blanch, and Todd Blanch being Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney. And frankly, within that building and within the federal prosecutor community and ex-Fed prosecutor community generally, I mean, this guy is even more despised than she is, because I think people knew that she was a bad actor, bad faith person her entire career and her entire life. You know, Todd Blanch, up until he became Donald Trump's criminal defense attorney, I mean, he was a former federal prosecutor. He was someone in that community who was actually, I don't think, known originally as being someone who would just go in there and gut the thing that gave him his career, the federal prosecutorial kind of establishment, fraternity, sorority, whatever you want to call it. And he's now someone who got his, start working there, always credited for his career, and then just rips it to shreds. So in many ways, he's even more despised. And, when you take a look at the things that he's done right away, I mean, notwithstanding the, DOJ veterans throwing the Bondi photos in the garbage, I mean, he said things like, "We're done with any investigations into Epstein. We're not going to talk about that anymore at all." I mean, you even had Jesse Waters on state regime media, which calls itself Fox, saying to Todd Blanch, who's now the acting attorney general, "I don't think that you understand the way people actually feel about the Epstein files. If you think that people believe you at the DOJ and Trump did a good job," even Waters, you don't get much more of a propagandist than that. He kind of checked Todd Blanch during that interview. You just look at some of the things that have been going on that DOJ account, social media account already anyway. I mean, we know that these photos of Bondi were thrown in the garbage because NBC got photos sent to them by people in some of the offices across the country. But now the DOJ Rapid Response account is saying fake news to Ken Delaney and posting one of those photos in the garbage can. And then it says real news. And it's a photo of Pam Bondi, I guess, still hanging. And it's like, okay, well, you found a photo of Pam Bondi still hanging in the main Justice Department building. So you're saying that Ken Delaney and sources we're not giving him, we're giving him a fake photo. I don't even know what the point that she's not the AG anymore. Her photos can be taken down. So like, what point are they trying to, even make here? It's also interesting to see different people trying to jockey for the job as attorney general, whether Todd Blanch, who's acting attorney general, will get the nod to try to become the attorney general. But I've seen lots of other people in Trump's orbit try to assert themselves to get that job. But obviously, that was big news at the end of the week. There were some people who were like, well, the reason that she got fired is that she leaked information to Eric Swalwell about an FBI investigation, his investigative file being released. And Swalwell's like, come on, you think I'm talking to Pam Bondi? What are you talking about? That's not true at all. I think the real reason was her mishandling of the cover-up of the Epstein files. I think Trump thought she would do it with more competence, and also Trump wanted her to go after his political enemies more successfully because that's been his main priority. And we've seen not just her losing those cases against Trump's political enemies, but also we've been seeing her unable to even get indictments and grand juries rejecting the presentation of a true bill to begin with. I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Substack, and podcast. Everybody subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Now, Harry, clearly, as everybody knows, Harry, former top federal prosecutor, you were the United States attorney in the Western District of Pennsylvania. You were a lead lawyer, lead prosecutor, and main justice. So you know this community of federal prosecutors. You know people who have either quit, lots of them, or have been fired or pushed out. Everyone talks to each other in that community. So people, on the one hand, happy Bondi's gone. On the other hand, Todd Blanch is viewed as even kind of worse than her. And then you've got this dynamic playing it out. So Harry, what do you make of it all, Harry?
A lot. And let's take it in turn. So the Bondi portrait stuff, by the way, fake news, real news, let's say half of them are down in the department across the country. That would be the real news. The ones that still happen to be up there, that's not news. And it really is. On top of everything else, all the best of the Department of Justice that she completely trammeled and put through the meat grinder. She was just a jerk to when I was there, you'd see the Deputy Attorney General walk in the halls, or you'd be in meetings with the AG or whatever. Her contempt, which we saw so vividly when she testified before Congress and had these, juvenile, well, what about your district kinds of non-responses. That was her exact attitude toward everybody at DOJ who for years had gone in to do the right thing. Erez Raveni is a good example here. He was the guy who actually told the truth about the Kilmar Abrego Garcia on March 15th. She not just fired him, but fired him and said because he's not being loyal to Trump, obviously meaning either prevaricate or just flat out lie. That's what you have to do. And that's what she communicated. And she communicated such distrust for the lifeblood of the Department of Justice. I was there when in the last at the end of the Garland era, and everyone, it's just how it works there, was just full of such praise and testimonials for the career staff, and she just pissed all over them from day one. On this portrait stuff, it's an interesting kind of part of the department sociology. Whose portraits will a new attorney general choose to put up there? And so Robert F. Kennedy is often well respected. It's an interesting portrait besides Robert Jackson and others. So the Pam Bondi portrait that's now in the wastebasket, I really think she is, as long as there's a memory of her, it's going to be a memory of someone who just in a year did everything they could to destroy all that is important and virtuous about the Department of Justice, the ideal of doing justice without fear or favor. And her portrait, I think, is destined to gather dust in the basement. I don't see a future attorney general saying, yeah, give me the Bondi portrait along with RFK. All right, to Blanch. First, your point is important and well taken. He was an AUSA. So I know so many people in the prosecutorial community. You see these long profiles of Bondi and her people down in Florida saying, what the hell happened to her? But she was obviously over her head from the start at DOJ. Blanch knows the culture, and he came of age in the SDNY. He wasn't a star there, but he was a solid AUSA, meaning a lot of people who I still know worked with him, and they really are, what the F? He obviously knows better. You saw his words at the Conservative Action Committee a couple weeks ago, boasting that nobody has a gun, meaning everyone's been fired from the FBI who had anything to do with the January 6th investigations. That is a breathtakingly corrupt kind of statement. They got rid of people because they worked on, by the way, virtuous prosecutions, but even if they hadn't, because they've done their duty. So the mistrust for him in some ways runs deeper. There is some, and there's another problem with him that aggravates the situation. He's known as the place where papers kind of go to die. Things gum up in the deputy's office, and he hasn't been really strong at kind of processing things. That's a really big part of the deputy's job. And at least in the past, when you become an acting attorney general, you still keep your deputy responsibilities. So that, in just the terms of the fecklessness or the trains not running on time in DOJ, that's going to be a big challenge. Let me say, I see zero chance that he is nominated for the job. I think he is angling. He wants to be in Emile Beauvais' footsteps, a Second Circuit appointment. But I have to say, he's unconfirmable. It would be a complete unearthing of all the crap that's happened, including when Bondi was in charge. Blanch, recall, along with Emile Beauvais, really has been in the center of everything. Indeed, of late, you could really see this was part of the death watch of Bondi. You could see that he was the one who was out front and talking to the press. There is an occasional rumor that's every once in a while he has tried to be what passes in this administration for a voice of moderation, but he's clearly all in the Roe Trump's barge plan. And he's now, going to want, when there is a new attorney general, that probably means he's out, and he's going to already be thinking of his exit strategy. I think of probably getting a judicial appointment. But as you say, Ben, there won't be fundamental changes. There won't be any kind of hesitation to do these, completely illegitimate, unconstitutional prosecutions. If anything, the opposite. Blanch will want to show he got the job done. Thank God that we had a bulwark in the form of grand juries or career prosecutors who said no. But I just want to say he is, I think, very unlikely to actually get the nod. And I think people in the department expect that this doesn't mean, ding dong, the witch is dead, but it doesn't mean a real let up in the so kind of hostile culture that now permeates the Department of Justice. He'll be the same kind of guy, in some ways a different style, more confrontational, but nevertheless, just the kind of jubilation that this so unqualified and corrupt and willing, to just dripping contempt. That's really who Bondi was as Attorney General, is gone. There's a lot of high fives going on all over the country in U.S. attorneys' offices, for sure.
Harry Litman, no one would know better than you. Everybody subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast. Harry, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers here, and make sure you subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel first. Thanks, Harry.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.